ahead, and we look forward to your engagement on both days. We're just giving people a few minutes to enter into the room, just so that we start proceedings with a full house. We have a number of people who have RSVP'd, and so we know from the numbers and the number of people entering into the room whether we have reached our target audience. Obviously, we won't wait indefinitely, but we do want to give people an opportunity to come into the room so that we do start with a full house. The conference itself is going to focus on the one thing that kept us all engaged very early in 2022. Over the last years, and especially with the pandemic that affected all of us, conversations around technology and its disruptions has been something that has been on everybody's mind. And 2024 started with lots and lots of conversation around the ChatGPT. And so ChatGPT brought into our consciousness the disruption of artificial intelligence, or AI. Although AI has been around for a very long time, and it has been something that, has been researched on, has been used in various spaces, it was not available for an everyday type of context. And with ChatGPT, at the beginning of this year, AI became part of our everyday lives. And today, you just pick up your telephone, and on it is the kind of intelligence that seeks out many things to share with you that you didn't even ask for. It reads you, it reads your patterns, it gives you the kinds of materials that it thinks interests you. So you have, lots of disruption that's going on at the moment. And of course, within the education space, both the benefits as well as the dangers and threats and difficulties with artificial intelligence also became something that was in much conversation. But today our focus is really centered on AI within the context of African leadership development. And we really want to focus on many aspects of AI, both through the conversations that will be had today and tomorrow, but also to then figure out together where are we going in the future and what will the future hold. But I can see that we have quite a number of people in the room, and it's already 7 minutes past. I think we should start proceedings, and then others will join us as and when they enter into the room. The tech team is fully cognizant of admitting people into the room, and we are also live streaming. So a lot of the RSVPs may also be on the Facebook live stream as well. And a huge hello to all of those people as well that are on Facebook. So to begin to get today's program, the conference is going to be opened, and a welcome and introduction will be given by the Deputy Dean Teaching and Learning in the Faculty of Education, Professor Jacqueline Batchelor. Professor Batchelor, over to you with your address.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to the conference chair, members of the organizing committee, colleagues, and conference delegates. On behalf of the Faculty of Education, it is a great honor to welcome all of the esteemed presenters and participants to today's conference as you deliberate on the impact of AI in African school leadership development. Artificial intelligence is playing an increasingly important role in many occupations. As a Faculty of Education, we have had to think long and hard about what this means for the field and the discipline. We face a crisis of legitimization with much critique from some circles. There are those who argue, for instance, that a teacher's work comprises algorithmic processes and routines that are simple and replicable, making it easy to replace teachers with robots. Some, like Anthony Sheldon, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buckingham, argue that robots could replace teachers as early as 2027. However, I would argue that the act of teaching and of relevance for today's conference of educational leadership is complex, requiring types of professional knowledge and judgment, executed in an integrated fashion in the moment in a classroom or school setting. everyday teachers and educational leaders must balance multifaceted components, such as their own orientation and motivation, their subject knowledge and knowledge of their learners, with contextual factors such as school culture, community influences, and wider socioeconomic circumstances. Thus, while technology will inevitably influence the judgment and practice of teachers and education leaders, it is not possible to reduce that complexity to a set of algorithms that underpin generative AI. Instead, it behoves us to envision how technology and AI can support teaching and learning and leadership development. My hope is that this conference will also engage deeply with the skills and competency leaders, and in particular school leaders, need. Think about cultivating a growth mindset, embracing change and adaptation, demonstrating agility, and committing to continuous learning and upskilling the workforce for the future of work. These are aspects we need to pay deep attention to. In an African context, we must ask ourselves as education leaders what this means for personalizing learning trajectories for school leaders and for preparing education leaders who are not only respond to situations that occur, such as what we've experienced in COVID, to respond to these with dexterity of thought and action, but also to take a strategic view to anticipate what is on the horizon and how to plan accordingly, whilst also being mindful of and anticipate the unintended consequences that our decisions may bring to us in the future. I appreciate that this conference will delve into simulation environments to help leaders develop the kind of skills and competencies required for the age of the new world of work. In the Faculty of Education, some of our colleagues work with mixed reality simulations, with augmented reality and virtual reality to prepare teachers for our practice. Our Finnish colleagues, in a collaborative project, have also shared how they've successfully leveraged simulation environments for teaching leadership skills in the military. There is so much that we can learn from each other. On a personal note, and as an educational leader myself, albeit not in a school setting, even though I work in the field of digital learning, I've been on the development path myself. Given the rapid onset and increased availability of AI in its many forms for teaching, learning, and research, I see the value of data assimilation and aggregation and recognizing patterns to make evidence-based and data-informed decisions. I imagine this could be amplified by the more powerful leveraging of general and generative AI. And I'm certain this is an aspect that you will explore in greater depth over the next 2 days. I wish you well in this endeavor and look forward to learning from this conference to improve what we do as education leaders and how we do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for that really warm welcome and for setting the scene for the deliberations that are to come. I think it's important for us to contextualize wherever we are in terms of our own thinking about AI, specifically in the spaces in which we lead, and what are the learnings that we come up with today in our various spaces. And I think you've mentioned quite a lot in your opening remarks to get the juices flowing around how people need to be contemplating on AI, which obviously is a new kid on the block in many of our lives, and how we move forward with that. It gives me great pleasure right now to introduce our keynote speaker for this afternoon. Many people in the room will know him as the previous Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, Professor Tshilidzi Marwala, the AI guru of South Africa, Africa, and now beyond, is currently the rector of UNU. Many people in the room will know of the number of publications and his particular investment in AI, particularly during his time as Vice Chancellor of University of Johannesburg, and currently in his more worldwide role as the rector of the UN University. Professor Marwala comes with a wealth of experience in this area, and his connection of AI in relation to sustainability is world-renowned. It is right now, I think, 8 p.m. in Tokyo, yet he has so kindly made himself available through technological means. And again, this is the power of technology. By not being able to be with us physically, but by sending us a recorded message that he'd like to share as his keynote. I'm going to share a screen that provides you with a video rendition of what he would have liked to have discussed with you today. And I'm always in awe of people who really, walk the talk, who are always able to make themselves available, no matter how small the occasion, to have their voice heard, but to also promote the idea of how technologies are disrupting us and what are the sorts of things we need to be thinking about in terms of Ritesh, can we just maybe mute people? I think people have got their microphones on. So I'm going to share the screen now.
Prof, you're on mute. Mitesh, please unmute Prof.
Okay, sorry. So I will now share the video address of Professor Marwala, who is joining us here in spirit and by this recording. The video takes a few minutes to share, but if somebody could just let me know if you can see this, the video on the screen.
The mobile pulse.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Sanibonani, good day. Leadership as we know it is in the midst of a profound transformation. The systems, processes, and structures around us are evolving rapidly, and it is only natural that leadership evolves alongside these changes. To understand this transformation, we must consider 2 critical perspectives: artificial intelligence, AI, and localization. For today's discussion, I use localization to refer broadly to the African continent, acknowledging its diverse needs and approaches while recognizing the potential for a cohesive strategy. This evolution in leadership is crucial to our collective goal of achieving a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. Before we delve into the complexities that AI introduces to leadership, it is essential to understand the African context. Afrobarometer surveys increasingly highlight widespread dissatisfaction with leadership across the continent, a trend that worsens with each passing year. The African Development Bank, AFDB, has also pointed to Africa's stagnation in global competitiveness, a symptom of leadership challenges, policy deficits, and stalled implementation. As Laundry Sine of the Brookings Institutions observed, Africa's leadership has far too often become a tool of disservice to the majority of Africans. What we need is a complete rethinking of leadership. In his book, From the Baobab to the Mosquito, Litlokwa Mpedi advocates for Ubuntu leadership, a model that emphasizes cohesion, strong relationships, and a common purpose, challenging traditional ideas and embracing a sustainable development approach. This concept of leadership aligns well with AI, particularly on the African continent. This year has been pivotal for AI in Africa. The African Union, AU, recently unveiled its continental AI strategy, a framework for utilizing AI to advance sustainable development through a human-centric and distinctly African approach, covering areas such as agriculture, health, education, infrastructure, and governance. The strategy aims to empower Africa to harness AI for its developmental goals. At the strategy's launch, AU Commissioner Amani Abu-Zaid emphasized the importance of adapting AI to African reality, stating, AI systems should reflect our diversity, languages, culture, and geographical context, as we aim to create an inclusive AI ecosystem and a competitive African AI market. We believe this strategy will provide a common vision and path to accelerate responsible AI innovation and adoption in Africa. This raises the question, how should leadership in Africa recalibrate to align with the AI era? In today's AI-driven world, power alone is insufficient. What we need is a new way of thinking, characterized by complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordination, emotional intelligence, judgment, decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. The challenge lies in translating the potential of AI and new leadership approaches into solutions for Africa's pressing issues such as poverty, disease, unemployment, economic decline, and food insecurity. Addressing these challenges requires a focus on science, technology, and innovation. Creativity, innovation, and the adoption of emerging technologies must take center stage as we redefine leadership and tackle contemporary challenges in Africa. Several broader interventions are necessary. First, robust infrastructure. Second, a coherent and enabling policy framework, particularly in science, technology, and innovation. Third, a reimagined and revitalized education system. Fourth, investment in research and development. Fifth, the promotion of business entrepreneurship. Sixth, fostering local, national, and international collaborations and networks. Seventh, active participation in the global knowledge economy. And finally, diversification of funding resources. Leaders must keep these priorities in mind as they chart a course forward. The AU Continental AI Strategy is a promising step in the right direction, but African leaders must recalibrate their approach to fully leverage AI's potential. The role of technology in leadership is twofold. It necessitates a shift in leadership styles to meet the demands of a changing world, and it involves the practical use of technology to enhance leadership effectiveness. These are connected ideas, both essential for our current global context. Technology, including project management software, collaboration platforms, data analysis tools, and communication technologies, should be harnessed to improve efficiency, collaboration, and communication within organizations. AI can empower leaders to anticipate trends, manage risks, and more effectively understand challenges deeply and implement innovative solutions tailored to the unique context of African communities. This approach to leadership aligns with global advancements and is crucial for positioning Africa as a key player in the digital economy. However, as leaders redefine their roles in the AI age, they must also prioritize ethical considerations and inclusivity to ensure that technology's benefits are widely shared. This is particularly important in Africa, where AI-related challenges such as bias, and discrimination disproportionately impact the continent. AI systems often originate in contexts that don't fully account for Africa's diverse realities. Therefore, integrating AI into African leadership requires more than just adopting cutting-edge technologies. It necessitates proactively addressing these challenges. Leaders must ensure that AI tools and systems are developed and implemented with a deep understanding of the local context, advocating for diverse data sets that represent the full spectrum of African societies, and ensuring inclusive and transparent AI development processes. This approach aligns with the broader goal of using technology to uplift communities and create a more equitable future. In conclusion, we must consider the African context and the evolving concept of leadership in the AI era as precursor to effectively utilizing these tools. There are undoubtedly exciting opportunities to reconceptualize leadership in Africa through AI and technology, which I am confident will be explored in greater detail throughout this conference. However, this entire process must be localized. Africa needs tools and monitoring systems tailored to its unique context, equipping leaders to address the continent's challenges and drive sustainable development. While I advocate for using these tools to augment leadership, I firmly believe in human-in-the-loop approach. As the organizers of this conference aptly put it, these tools should be seen as extension of human capabilities. Achieving our envisioned future requires us to remain fundamentally human-centric. To echo the words of Signe, the time for excuses is over. The future of Africa will be brighter if everyone takes responsibility. Ndi alibuwa, ki alibuwa, baya danki, ngiyabonga.
I think that was an incredible opening, particularly contextualizing the African story. And I know that what was just said and what was just spoken about may have happened at a very, very fast pace. But I think the idea of the human loop, the idea that technology in partnership, machine intelligence and human intelligence in partnership is the answer. And of course, the warning that, Africa in many ways have been, in terms of machine learning, has been disadvantaged. And how do we start that process of reconciliation? How do we create equity even within the online space? And so the idea of localization, of infrastructure, of the kind of resources, and how do we then work with technology for the greater good? So many different aspects of wisdom. This particular address will also be put onto our platforms so that you can look at it again if you missed some of the pieces that was shared over there. And I think that Professor Marwala really opens this space to a lot of conversation amongst ourselves. But in order to get us and all our voices into the room, there is a small Mentimeter exercise that we'd like to ask for your indulgence in. So in the chat, Awande or Jatine, if you could just put the little Mentimeter, the Mentimeter prompt or the site that you need to get into the Mentimeter is already in the chat. Please, we would like as many people to engage with that. It's an open-ended question. You can respond to that question as many times as possible. And today we're really wanting to look at perhaps the positive side of things. We're wanting to look at what are the ways in which AI as a technology can support and impact African leadership and address many of Africa's problems through a very positive lens. So let us look at how this can be done very positively, being mindful of the many pitfalls that do exist, it would be good to start the conversation on where do we see value, where do we see possibilities, and what would that look like for us. So we give you a little bit of time to just focus on the Mentimeter. And I don't know, Awande or Jackie, if you could just put the live Mentimeter, just to get people's voices into the room, just so that we can see what people are saying and what kind of conversations are being had. I will look at the chat as well, just to have a look and see what people are thinking about. But it could be that people have not had the time to engage in the chat as well. If we could just have that live presentation, please, of whatever's coming up, it would be good. Okay, so I think people are just busy engaging with the question. And the question is really speaking to what are the ways in which you think AI has a positive impact on leadership? As we wait for people to engage, I will start to introduce our next speaker. So we have two speakers lined up for the next part of our conversation. The one is in the room at the moment, and the other, unfortunately, we don't see him in the room right now, but I'll try and engage with that offline. But let me introduce you to a colleague and a friend and a co-developer of a particular project that I'm involved in the form of a Professor Vesa Missinen. Professor Vesa Missinen is from Finland, and he is the founder and president of Deep Lead, which is a coaching enterprise. And he works with leaders across many different contexts, including, as Jacqueline mentioned at some point, the military, but he's also worked with leaders in higher education and across many, many industries. And the way in which he works with the development of leaders through what he calls a transformational leadership process. He works with deep learning, in particular in his work. And in terms of deep learning, Professor Missinen also uses AI-directed and AI-supported technologies within that process to support leadership development. His particular topic today is coming from an international perspective, but he's getting himself with his feet wet within the local context, in that he and I are working on a project in Tshwane that looks at school principal leadership development in 6 Tshwane schools. And today, Professor Vesa Missinen is going to be engaging with us in what is the meaning of AI in leadership development. So Professor Missinen, over to you for your address while we wait for people to continue with engaging with the Mentimeter. I see some people have started to engage there. And I like the idea, which seemingly is coming up quite strongly, is the idea of improved decision making. And I think that that's the place that most people have a lot of investment. How can we make the kinds of decisions, especially within the crises that we have been exposed to in a constantly changing world. How can we engage in those crises with improved decision-making? How can we look into the future around future fit leadership? So I think we're going to stop the Mentimeter, not stop the Mentimeter, people can still respond to the Mentimeter, but certainly we'll bring it up later and we'll allow now Professor Nissen to address us. Over to you, Professor Nissen.
Thank you, Kat, and thank you for inviting me. Really pleased to be here. And yes, my background comes from different sources. I'm a person of combination of military and academic background combined with coaching and educational leadership and pedagogical leadership. And yes, in my career, I was, for example, working as a director of the pedagogical and leadership faculty in the military university. But then after that, during my coaching career, I've been coaching universities and applied universities in Finland. I mean, not only the highest leadership, but superiors and also all the teachers, in a way to reach a platform where, let's say, common understanding of human interaction and goal-oriented learning and deep learning is, let's say, starting point for the development and changes of the culture. And truly, as Kat mentioned, my beliefs, my understanding about good and the best possible leadership, it's really connected to the ideas of transformational leadership. That is proven and by research, proven way to really to be able to change the culture of a team, organization, or even society. And that's the case. And then the other side of my approach, this deep learning idea, it's really tightly connected to the leadership development and truly growing as a leader and as a person, not only doing some changes in your habits in a way that, okay, I'm acting like something else. No, that's not the way to do it. True growing means that we need to do deep learning with us, I mean, at individual level. And I will speak about later on when I have my turn. I will speak about what is our experience right now about artificial intelligence in this connection. I want to define what is leadership development from our point of view, and then from our experience, what is AI's role in this process, and what it can be and what it cannot be into our understanding. We have this kind of deep leadership academy that's totally digital, and already from the beginning, several years ago, we added artificial intelligence as a part of this learning process and the way the academy is working. And of course, we are improving it all the time, but also collecting experiences, how individual leaders, how individual persons relate to artificial intelligence when they are running their learning stories and doing their deep learning processes in our program. So there's both a kind of academic process. I want to, of course, define the concepts, but also from our experience, some lessons learned, what AI at this moment in our experience can do and what it maybe cannot do in area of leadership development. Yes, and I'm sitting now in Helsinki, where I live. I was in Joburg in April, and I'm lucky to say that I'm coming again in October. So we will meet, for example, with the principals. I'm now coaching, and I'm really happy to be part of this seminar as well. Thank you. Kat, are you taking over?
Vesa, Professor Malloy is on his way into the room, so we are asking that you do your presentation first, please.
So I'm doing the presentation first, okay?
No, he's not here yet.
Okay. So of course I prepared one, so I will pick it up. I need my glasses, just a moment. Just a moment. Let's have it here. Where did I put it originally? Yes. Here we have it. Okay. Okay.
We
You
can
can
see
see
the
it.
presentation. We can see it.
Yes. Okay. So how much I have time left, Kat?
You can go for a while. So say until 2:10.
Okay, that long. Okay. Then I'm not in a hurry. That's great. And hopefully people, if you have questions, maybe you fill up in the chat field, so we can, in the end, we can check what kind of questions we have and then try to communicate with those. I cannot say that I can answer those, but we can share at least the opinions about the questions you might have. Yes, let's go forward. Simply, this kind of approach, as an academic point of view, the fact is that we still don't have any globally accepted definition of leadership. There are many ways to define it, but what all the researchers would agree on, we don't have. So when you start to speak about leadership, I think it's vital that we define how we see leadership, how we define leadership, because there are so many approaches. And of course, I want to also, for you, I want to define what is our approach to leadership so that we have the understanding what we truly mean with that. And then continuing from that, what is leadership development and what kind of process, what it demands. And in that context, I need to speak a little bit about deep learning. And then after having this definition, understanding what is actually the environment we are living at from our point of view, and there might be many others, but this is our point of view. Then speaking about our experience and some words about artificial intelligence in leadership development, how we are using it, how we can use it, and what kind of findings we have made in the past years, let's say this way. So starting with the framework, what comes to the transformational leadership, I'm sure that many of you know about that, but when you go deeper to the theory, the main finding is that what is crucial in leadership is how do you behave. What is behind is not that important, because when I start to work with people, what people actually take out of me, it is the perception of my behaviors. They don't know my past, they don't know my experiences, they don't know my whatever it's behind. The things that they hear, they see, they experience, of course, behavior is a large concept, starting from my habitus, everything. But actually what they can see and feel, that's what they get, and that's what gets them doing things. And if I want to, for example, motivate people through my behaviors, it has to be done in that level. I cannot motivate them by saying that I'm this and this and I have this kind of background. No, I have to deal at the moment with people through my behaviors in a way that it really motivates them. So in transformational leadership, and also in my concept of leadership, behaviors, what we do in practice, it is the key concept. It's in the middle of the picture. And then when we have decides, of course, behind my personal behaviors and yours as well, there's your potential. It could be whatever word like readiness or personality, whatever, but we use the word potential just to emphasize that even if we are, what the life has made of us, when we're born, we got some kind of, of course, genes, and then we grow up and we get educated and we live in somewhere. Then the working life brings different kind of experiences that shaping us in many ways. And we all are like a mixture of everything in here, which is really complex, and how much every single perspective is affecting what we are now. Nobody can say truly in 1% accuracy, but we understand that it's the mixture of everything that's happened, and of course my starting point, what I got when I was born. But why do we call this background as potential? Because we know by research, and we all know by our own experience and looking around, that people actually can learn very many things, even if things they didn't know that they have any talent or potential, whatever. And truly, we all are carrying already with us a really strong and large potential to learn new things if we only try to learn. Of course, if we are not trying to learn, we are not learning anything. But I would like to say, as a coach and as your fellow human, that that's a very encouraging understanding that, for example, when it's been studied, how much of our brain energy, our brain potential we are using during our lives, it's maybe few percents, up to 10%. Maybe Mr. Einstein was able to use 15. Come on, we still have the majority of our, capacity unused. That's one example. So that's why we call it potential. We know that it's basically what we are, but we want to emphasize in deeply that we all have huge potential if we only can release that. And by the way, it's not only mathematics or this kind of things, it's also about our behaviors. We all can learn new things what comes to our behaviors if we only are willing to try and willing to make a good attempt to do that. It's not a mystical thing. It's the attitude thing and willingness to put some effort on learning these things. So it also goes to behaviors. And then the other side of the picture, it's the impact. And when we work as leaders, in our context, what it is and what's the environment, we have actually a big impact on everything that happens. It's not only the work-related goals, what we are pushing for the people, we need to achieve this, and this is our task, and we have this kind of schedules, and we have to do this year, these things. It's not only that. We have also another kind of impact. We have impact on people's feelings, on their emotions, on the atmosphere that's happening around me. So our impact, it's bigger than we normally think. But it's also sometimes really fuzzy to understand what it is, because everything always happens in a certain environment, as you know. And what are the other factors? What are the intervening things coming to this picture? The more far away I go to the impact area from my personal behaviors, the more there are things that intervene and make the picture unclear. What is actually my impact? And what's the impact of all the other things that are coming along? So it's not so easy to understand. And we need the tools and a way to approach this picture or this understanding if we want to have the clear situational map and picture what we are actually having. So then we come to the learning cycle, and you see this number 8 that's lying down. That's the eternal symptom, and that's how we see the learning for leadership and learning for any behaviors actually should go. And because of the clarity that we need to have from the impact side, in our understanding, we need to have and we must have external feedback, honest, open, anonymous feedback to tell how the environment, I mean, how the other people have been, experiencing my behaviors. Because at personal level, it's impossible to check everything and to understand and even to read the minds. It's not possible. We need to have a credible tool doing the work for us, building the picture, and we need to do the external feedback process. And after we have had this, then we can think about, what benefits or what are all the good things I can find from this feedback and identifying these benefits. And in this area, you can see the behaviors in the middle, this left-hand side in this picture, it's kind of my personal area. The deeper we go to the left-hand side, the more it's truly only my responsibility, and I'm truly only one who can do that work, because nobody else knows what's inside me as well as I do myself. And then, like vice versa, from the behaviors to the right-hand side, the more we are living in the living world, and the more we have different kind of factors and things and situations and happenings intervening to this picture and making it much more complex. But now in this feedback loop, now we are going inside to the deep learning area, to be honest. So I need to identify the benefits. I need to really think what this feedback gives, and then believing in my potential, also finding issues that are not working at now in the best way in my behaviors, selecting one topic at a time. That's our principle, one topic at a time, and then committing to that change, saying to myself that I want to reach this, I do my everything so that I can transfer these lessons learned to my behaviors to make observed change in my behaviors, to have better leadership, to have better impact, and then in the end, after 1 year, to see that, okay, now the new behaviors I had, very simple thing, but maybe one thing, but in that area, people can see that, hey, now there is a new behaviors and it has replaced the old behaviors. It can be, and they normally are, by the way, they are not mystical things. They are not like very complex things. These things are very simple, like learning how to stop to listen to other people, or learning how to clarify the goals of the work, or learning how to be a little bit more open when you make decisions, or very, very simple things. They are not mystical or impossible. But still, if you have another habit, it takes time, and by research, it takes minimum 6 months to really work every day so that the new way to behavior is replacing the old one. And that's why our process, what we practically do based on this picture, it takes normally at least 9 months, even 1 year. But this is the understanding. And you can now see how we see the leadership. We see it based on this picture. So leadership defined. My definition and deeply definition for leadership is that leadership is something that happens in a certain operating environment. It is based on your personal potential. It's practice, it is behaviors for some goals. It brings impacts in your environment. And then last point, it demands continuous learning. So I'm using this framework also to my definition of leadership. environment, potential, behavior, impact, learning. That's how we define leadership. And our approach to leadership and leadership development is based purely on this framework and this understanding. All right. Now, let's speak about the deep learning process. I don't have, and everything I have read, the researchers around the globe, they don't have clear understanding. They don't have actually not a very strong clue in the end how our brains are working. We have been able to identify different processes. We can identify in which part of the brain certain things happen. We can, for example, we can try to study emotions and emotional intelligence by using the brain's electronic, let's say, symptoms, electronic measurement about the brains. Like I know that in one of our universities, they made a study that they tapped all the brains in very, very nice way so that they can measure really small differences in the electronic level in the brains. And then they were showing to pictures to people really some pictures that normally should create kind of strong emotions, like emotions of happiness, emotions of hate, of fear, and so on. And truly, in these tests, we can see that most of the areas, when you have the picture from up, most of the areas in these pictures, there's a green, very strong light, so that when we deal with emotions, actually the whole, at least surface part of the brain starts to be active. So it's not only in one part of the brains, it's the whole setting that it's getting active. But in these studies, they found that there are a few % of the people whose brains are not working like that. When other people have like a fire in their brains, these people, their brains, they only blink very small lights there and there, meaning that the chemistry of their brains is different. And I think in practice, in this case, we speak about people who actually have strong problems to analyze feelings, to see other people, how they feel. And I think that will cause a problem, for example, to being a good leader, because if we want to be good leaders for other people, we need to know how they feel so that we can also lead the feelings, not only work on the logical side, because feelings and emotions are actually much more important in the life, even in the decision making, we are willing to admit, to be honest. Okay, we can see that our thinking process in many ways. I just put some examples of different, different packages or different approaches which we can use when we think about the basis of our behaviors. We can measure the traits. You all know Myers-Briggs type indicators, such tools. We can think about our values. We can measure the values. We can speak and we can measure intelligence, whether it's traditional way or emotional intelligence or Howard Gardner's model having 8, even 9 dimensions. We have different habits. We have all the life experiences. And based on many things, we have not values, but beliefs in our soul, what we think that's really true and what's really important. Quite close to values, but not the same thing. Then another thing that's of course has quite a strong relationship to behaviors is self-esteem and self-confidence. Especially, I think, when it comes to receiving and handling the feedback. In my experience, people who are in balance, who have a good self-confidence, they are more ready to receive even the negative or corrective feedback than the people who have problems in that area. Their resistance, their, let's say, even aggressive reactions are much more likely to happen, because even a small negative thing can be a big threat because they are not balanced. They have some problems with their self-esteem, and self-confidence. So these things are all intertwined and intercorrelated in our behind our behaviors and in very complex area. And then, of course, when we think about what we actually inherited in genes, everybody has the basic temperament, how fast or how slow we are, and that's the only thing that's actually not changing during our lives. All the other things are pretty stable, but they can change, and they will change in time. Even to intelligence, one part of my studies in the past was I really got deeper to the studies made by twins, identical twins that has been raised departed. They have the same kind of genes, but they for some reason they've been growing up in a different environment, going to different schools, and be raised by different parents. And surprisingly, in these studies, you can measure big changes, big differences, for example, in the traditional intelligence test. If the average IQ is 100, in these tests, a twin could have 85, and the other twin being raised in different way found 30 in that test. And it goes in many areas. So this only proves that even if, of course, our personality and our capabilities are based what we have inherited, the education, living environment, these things can make a big difference what we actually become. And then when we are adults, when we have our own understanding of ourselves, and we have our own will to be something, and our own capability to analyze our behaviors based on the things on the left-hand side, then actually we can drive much more what we want to be in the future. And that's everything that actually it's very important. And what I want to say finally about deep learning and this picture is that that's where deep learning truly happens. And let me take a example, very simple example, again coming back to very normal thing like being able to listen people. If I got feedback from my own team about my behaviors, that Vesa, you are doing good work, but there's one problem, you could listen people better, there's some kind of problem, and I'm looking for the feedback, I'm identifying the benefits, I'm looking good things, looking hints that where I could develop. Then I noticed that, hey, this truly so that many people are saying to me, and I can see it from the figure that appreciation, and in the appreciation respect, there's listening that's not working. To be able to change that, I need to understand to deep learning idea why my listening skills and my way to listen is not as good as it could be. So deep learning in this leadership development environment is that being able to answer the question why. And it means that I have to go through all these areas you can see inside the picture of the brains in this picture. I need to think about values, for example, and my beliefs. So that do I have a deep problem, which would mean that I think that I'm so much better than the other people that I don't need to listen to them because anyway, I know things better. Do I have this kind of problem? And if I have, I'm in a big problem because the deeper the problem is, the more difficult it is to change. Normally, that is not the problem nowadays for the leaders. I can say it's not the problem. It's somewhere else. Is it about my habits? Is it about my experiences? So I learned that this is the way to do it. Or is it really in the so simple thing that I'm just too busy? So that my habit is to run from minute to minute, hour to hour. I cannot stop. When people come to speak to me, my mind is full of different things. My computer is open, my phone is blinking. I just cannot concentrate. Can it be so? I can tell you, yes, it can. So then the task to myself would be, hey, I want to listen. I want to make people feel that they are respected. So then I take the task for the next year. And my goal would be stop and concentrate. That's everything it takes to listen to other people. Stop and concentrate, for example. But to make this goal real and make deep learning happen, I have to do this process with me because it brings, as you can see, there's these motives. It brings me to motivation because I understand what is the problem deep inside. And it gives normally a motive to change it because I understand what's behind. And I have to do this process myself. And as a coach, I encourage people in this. I try to go there and walk with them with the feedback, but I cannot do the work with them for them. They have to do the work themselves. But everybody has potential. Everybody can always learn something all the time. So that's for sure. That's what I know. Okay, so we are trying in this framework, Deep Lead is trying to help all the individuals, not only leaders, teachers, experts, coaches, all the people whose main content in the work is human interaction. It is for all the people. How can I improve my behaviors for my own benefit to be more effective, to grow my value in the work market? And now, what is the possibilities of artificial intelligence in this game? So, yeah, let's have this list. So, as you can see here, what we have found out, and now it's also based on the complexity of this this area. Artificial intelligence, AI, first of all, because it can easily handle in the way that is raw, let's say just doing basic analysis, or in the way that we train, actually, we call machine learning, we train it to do some things with some parameters, which can be pretty complex. It can help us, first of all, as leaders, for example, to understand better the operational environment, to be able to map things and understand actually what's happening. Because for us, it's very, it takes a lot of effort to try to make sense out of this world, as you know, sometimes. And then, at least from the logical point of view, based on the psychology and modern understanding of human behaviors, it can sometimes quite nicely explain why do humans behave in a way they do. What is the probable explanation if I see somebody behaving like that? I don't see why this person is behaving like this. And when I ask from our coach in our academy, when you ask what might be the reason, because it has studied a lot of psychology, I mean AI, it can give quite a logical answer that there might be this kind of reason why this person is reacting like that. Of course, when we have bigger, massive data, and if you have pages and pages open feedback in your open written feedback in your profile, it can easily summarize large data packages, and that's very handy, by the way. Also used in the coaching and in other areas. Then the good thing is that it can be really trained, and it can be trained for AI for coaching purposes, like specialized for like a tool you have, trying to make a deeper understanding how the tool works, and when you have some result, what are really the most important, factors, and what are the most important identified benefits you can find from there, let's say this way. Then when you are moving the way, when you have made up your mind, you set some milestones and you are moving through your targets. I mean, you have clear set goals. The AI can help you to follow the set goals. That's one thing. And then one practical thing that is true is that when it's there, and you have this kind of academy in your use, in your mobile phone, in your computer, whenever you are connected to network, it can help you 24/7. And that's very difficult to reach when you have a real coach. Even if you are so rich that you can hire a real coach, maybe in the middle of night, he or she is not really willing to answer to you, but AI doesn't complain. It's available 24/7. And then you can do your, let's say, homeworks or your analysis whenever you want. But then, on the other hand, we all know that human connection is very important to correct human things. And unfortunately, when we speak about sharing feelings, empathy, and any kind of emotional response, AI cannot do it. So it's only what it is. And if I have this kind of personality, that I need a lot of this kind of response, and then we come to the differences in between humans. We are quite different. For some people, this kind of response for learning is more important than the others. It's based on, of course, our differences. So this is what we cannot not have. And then we know that in a certain amount, for humans, emotional intelligence can be taught, and you can learn also in that area things. But how about AI? Can it in the future, can it be trained to have some emotional intelligence? That is an open question for us. And of course, we want to study it and be in the forefront of these things, because we started this kind of training already in the one of the first ones, and we want to be there also in the future. But I think the list shows that there are so many things that AI actually can do to help people to develop their leadership skills, that even if it's not still not, or maybe in the not in the near future, able to do the things in the emotional side, we have so many benefits that, of course, it's a good thing to use it as a part of the process. But maybe if we leave a person only dealing with AI and there's no human touch, maybe we are taking too big risk in the end of the day, so that we will lose some of the people and we are not actually helping them, because they cannot find the connection between AI and their own potential, to be honest. So that's what we've been doing, and based on this finding, deeply nowadays, how we deal with the academy. Actually, currently, most of our solutions for learning are hybrid ones. So it's a combination of human coaching and then using the academic resources for supporting the learning and supporting the trip for learning and doing all the things that are here. But it's a combination of human things and AI-based things. And that is our current status in our processes, what we do to keep people happy and then keep them learning as we want to do. So that was my presentation about the topic. Maybe I stop sharing now and we can check what we have here.
Thank you so much, Professor Nissinen. That was an amazing presentation. Lots of people on various spaces have said how brilliant the conversation has been so far. And I think that there's been a lot of learning from you in particular because you have a coaching process that is already underway, that is already tried and tested. But maybe a question that you can respond to is, I know that a lot of your work has happened in Europe. Do you think that the AI technology and the way in which you have presented your particular model, the applicability for the African context, what do you see as some of the ways in which there's alignment? And what would some of the ways be where there's perhaps, tweaking or changes that are needed? So as Professor Marwala's keynote shared with us, the African context needs to be distinct. It has to be localized, it has to be contextual, because what maybe the leadership needs in Europe may not necessarily coalesce well with the African context. So maybe if you just want to respond to that question, please.
Yes, and to be honest, Kat, that's why we are now there. Part of our interest is to learn more. So of course, we are really keen on now studying, researching, and seeing how our approach is working now, for example, in South Africa, into environment, which you know very well. I'm sure that the phenomena, the cornerstones of DeepLead, they exist strongly in your culture as well. But what comes to the learning process, use of AI, and then starting from the devices, which kind of connection you have to internet and what kind of machines you are using. Are you using a laptop or a smaller device or your mobile phone? Of course, our academy is working all of them, but and what are the habits of people? Then the other thing is that we normally support the process by formulating small groups. Groups of 3 people who are bringing more touch from the human side to the learning process. So even if you are in the digital academy, these people meet in real, they make a phone call or video call, and then they share experiences. So that's how we enrich the process with no cost, with this kind of small learning groups, how this kind of process would work in the future, and so on. And still, also for us, we have only 3 years experience with the academy. So this is so strongly about the learning process that I cannot answer your question promptly, but I'm sure that if we work hard, we can find good ways so that the results delivering this kind of idea that bring teams, organizations, even the society, in a different level. We can find the ways, but we need to learn. We need to find out by research how these things are working.
No, I really appreciate your honesty in terms of the learning that still needs to take place. And maybe for everybody in the room to say, there's not if something works in one part of the world, there's not necessarily an automatic transfer with machine learning and with the whole engagement process, because it's so heavily dependent on who people are and the contextual realities. There's a period or transition period in which there needs to be interaction for that kind of learning to take place. And obviously with your work here in South Africa, that is starting to happen. And it's not without its challenges. What is taken for granted around connectivity and access in Europe may not necessarily always translate, within the African context, as you've also discovered as well. But I'll be very interested to know how your model, its particular applicability across the African context, how does that work out for us? particularly as we navigate the space of learning. So I really want to thank you, Vesa, for putting some more food for thought into our space, and many people in the chat have also appreciated your presentation. And I think that your visuals have given us an idea of how this process of the human loop, as Professor Marwala has said, can work in a very concrete sort of way. And so we appreciate your presentation in that regard. Thank you very much. And I hope that the breakout rooms will have much more discussion around some of the things that you brought into the space. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And
I will share my presentation, by the way. I will just
thank you so much. I think
make sure it's then if people want to have it, they can have it. Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vesa. We'll put that onto our platforms. We normally do that, as well as the recording. So if people want to listen to it again, they can definitely revisit the recording. And with your permission, we can also make your contact details available should people want to engage a little bit more beyond this with you.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So we move on to our next presenter, also a UJ colleague who is at the the University of Johannesburg's Business School, Professor Tankiso Moloi. Many would know Professor Tankiso from the very many contributions that he's made across the country and beyond. But just to give a short snapshot, he is a professor and academic director at the Johannesburg Business School. Before the University of Johannesburg, he was a director of enterprise risk management and a professor of financial governance at the University of South Africa. And he has spent a decade or almost a decade as a chief accountant of Anglo American, and he holds or has held various non-executive director positions, which include being the CIMA council member, the chair of Africa's Regional Engagement Group, the chair of Workstream 6 for 4IR Technologies in Namibia's 4IR Task Force. He's an NRF-rated researcher and has published numerous articles in peer-reviewed academic accredited scientific journals, chaired and participated in various conferences as a keynote speaker and a presenter. And today he graces us also with a wonderful presentation in relation to what does AI mean for school leadership in Africa. Over to you, Professor Moloi.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm sure the prof that has spoken just before me has covered some of the things that I'll talk about. I saw some slides on deep learning, and I began to think of the artificial neural networks, but it's a good, it's a good exposure to the other side of thinking about deep learning. And I'm sure Prof. Marwala would have spoken about AI, at least at a basic level. So that's where Prof, I'm going to start. I just swiped a little bit the title as I was thinking. So then I thought, okay, let me talk about leveraging human and artificial intelligence to gear for the future in African schools, then drawing from the work that we've done. And then just essentially what I would talk about is just AI in its basic form, the generic benefits of AI, then a little bit of challenges as per Yusuf. There's so many challenges that, universities, TVET colleges and schools in general in African context are facing, but I'll just talk a little bit about them, some 3 or 4 of those challenges. And I'll show you what we, what our research shows about the job market of the future, then the expected impact of AI in the job market, and then maybe just ask the question based on the research that we've done for the South African government, African schools and leaders prepared for AI, for automation, and then just narrow it towards the end and talk to leveraging human and artificial intelligence in order to take advantage and avoid human irrelevance, in the future. So I start, Prof. Marola would have spoken to this. So just at the basic level, AI being a technique that makes machines to be or appear to be intelligent. You know, that if you go back to the 1950s, 1940s, and you read Turing, so then if the machine can perform a task and a human cannot see that the task was performed by a machine, then the machine is intelligent. So then what we're seeing with AI, for instance, is that in the past, you would just sit there and type command, save, etc., etc. So then as you type these days, the machine kind of highlights in red to say, oh, the spelling might be wrong, or you might be using the British instead of the American English, etc., etc. So then machines are learning and then they make their own decisions. And then if we move to this slide, then just a little bit on the types of AI that exist out there. So you've spoken already, Prof, about the machine learning. So that's the type of AI that we kind of use a lot, which is the approach that uses data and statistics to build intelligent machines. But there is also soft computing, so where you try to bring intelligence into machines using the limited amount of data. An example of that would just be the work of Zadeh in the fuzzy logic. So fuzzy logic just being the notion of working on what is more or less true, or the logic that is based on partial truths. So for instance, if you were to think about it, you think about a cloud. If that dark cloud, you think, okay, then, you know, logic would say, you know, it will storm, it will rain, but fuzzy logic says, yes, it would probably rain, but at the same time, something else might as well happen. So if you thought of birds, if you took the pixels, so you were doing machine vision, so you took the pixels of the picture and so on and so on. You look at the chicken, so it has the neck, it has those eyes, and so you'd say it's a bird. But I mean, so a human knows that this type of a bird cannot fly. Other birds do kind of fly. So then you compensate by fuzzy logic. You compensate for something else might just happen. So I'm not sure if Marola touched on this. So then it comes from some of his books. And the one that's more interesting would be the computational intelligence. So then where, you know, there is an observation of how the nature works. And then from that observation, so then you then use the lesson learned to build the intelligence. So then examples, for instance, if you look at the ant hills, if you look at the beehives, you look at nature, you look at how busy those bees are, you look at how busy those ants are moving up and down, carrying stuff, but never knocking each other. So then you then think about these self-driving cars, you look at the sensors, then training these algorithms to say, okay, that's a human. So if you know, driving, self-driving, and then there's human, then you brake. If the traffic light was to turn red, you train it that, okay, it brakes. If it's green, it starts moving and using those sensors. So then AI becomes the dominant technology in the era that we kind of live in. As it becomes a dominant technology, there are, of course, generic benefits that are derived from AI. So for instance, then if you were to do massive, you know, to analyze massive data sets, so we argue this in the previous book that, look, in the past, you know, all decisions were, you know, or relied on human agents. As we move into AI, so some decisions would be delegated to machine agents to do them. So then some of the benefits includes the efficiency and speed that AI would, for instance, crunch the data, and then people are able to make decisions quicker. So I think, so if one was to think of it from the medical perspective, if they were to do a scan and then AI is able to tell, oh, these cells are cancerous immediately, then a treatment can kind of start. Sometimes unreliable, but you know, then in terms of data sets or so, then much more reliable. And then of course, if you were to thought of structured, unstructured, semi-structured data, so far more much it excels compared to human beings. Just so many things as a background. Then you have now that in mind, the AI is the dominant technology. and some of the benefits. Then we then look at some of the problems. One, we know that funding in the African context also, then it remains one of the major challenges. So you'd see when I come back to this point of funding, when we talk later of commercialization using AI and using the knowledge that we have, so then how does it then helps us to deal with the funding? So then if you look at also the USAF reports, so then, just concerns a bit about the preparations of students for jobs and careers. So I just add that entrepreneurship as a result of rapid technological changes. Then some estimates indicating that 65% of students that graduate may not have jobs, or the jobs may, the jobs that, are envisaged may have changed. So I'll just touch a little bit on our research, what we see as the jobs of the future. And then we then begin to think, okay, in the African context, what do we have to do? So, and then African schools and African universities, what does then one do? And then just that code down there. We just need to rethink education. It comes from USAF. Then, used to be a brick and mortar, so should it be like that? Et cetera. Then let's have a look at now some of these jobs. So if you just go back a bit, so then say 65% of people graduating may have, jobs and careers that don't exist today. So then we just do a little bit of work. So then some of, if you look at the research that's coming out there, some of the jobs that, emerge in the future. For instance, if you go to Facebook, Prof, I've seen you a lot on Facebook. So you click, etc. You leave a lot of data there. So then possibly the personal data brokers, they will ensure that consumers receive revenue for their data. Right now, we just leave data, we just sign stuff. So then these guys would possibly, there would be brokerages, they would establish the prices and execute trades. I think some of the interesting, careers that we see, the influencers. So we never used to have influencers, but these, digital technologies allows us to have that. So then think of, personal memory curators, which will consult with patients and stakeholders, to generate specifications for virtual reality experience. So which possibly would be important in teaching, so our visual reality. And then like the augmented reality journey builder, so then these guys would collaborate with the engineers and technical artists to develop, vital elements for clients. Maybe then the body part makers. So then if you got injured or maybe the heart is no longer working, then try to rebuild it. Then highway controllers, then the roads would be automated, and airspace management to ensure no errors occur. So then you have this highway controller. So how ready are we? So then, then in Africa, so then African schools, and then people that are leading these schools, to drive some of these potential changes. Then, some of these, potential future roles are stated in here. So then I think, so we've begun to see the space pilots and tour guides, and architects. So then, so you've seen, Elon and, some Blue Origins going to the outer space. And then saying in the next couple of years or so, it's expensive, of course, to go up there. So then it will become a little bit cheaper, etc. So you begin to see some of these careers emerging. So again, so you begin to think, what are we doing? So how have we rejected the curriculum? So the people that are leading, where can we improve ourselves? So from where I see it from the audit perspective, so then algorithms are known to be biased. And so then from the audit perspective, possibly the algorithm bias auditors would emerge. So because humans would be working closer to machines, we probably have the teaming managers that ensure that there is a great team up between humans and machines, and there is, things are working optimally. And then there is a rise in the use of digital currencies also. Then these guys, the advisors, will provide their advice on which digital currency to buy, keep, etc., etc. So then okay, we see these job changes. Question becomes now, okay, what then how does it look like into the future? How does the future kind of looks like? So then if you look at the Wall Street journals, it talks about the waves, that there will just be some waves that would happen. So they say then the impact would happen in 3 waves. The first wave will be algorithmic. The second wave will be augmentation. And the third wave will be autonomy. So then in the first wave, where there is a move, to, algorithms or so, then about 2-3% of jobs are going to be impacted. But in the second and the third wave, apparently this is where you're going to see a lot of impact on jobs, about 30 to 40% of jobs, particularly that mean jobs getting impacted. So which makes sense anyway. So if you look at the third wave, where there is where the factories would be more or less autonomous. And then when it comes to the readiness, how then, given these waves and given these future roles, are African leaders ready, particularly in the educational space? Have they prepared their institutions and by extension, the students for the future of work, or, what we're seeing out there? So we just did a report for government some time ago. So when we looked at the education, training, and development purposes sector, and then we had a special emphasis on emerging technologies, the skills that are in place, and the critical needs for the future. And as given, so then other pockets, there is some form of readiness, which is anyway confirmed by the Presidential Commission's report on 4IR. But in some components, you can see it's a little bit we are a little bit behind. So, and then if we go to this slide, then okay, then what do we then do? So then the previous presenter touched on this. So then it just, okay, then to help ourselves and those that lead in these in institutions or so, then human beings learn or take decisions by perceiving, by discerning, and then they then respond to a challenge. Then we then have a responsibility to ensure that there is awareness, ensure that there is a response to the challenges that we might as well just be facing. And what does this mean? So then if you go to Buchardt and Qatar explain that awareness, so that, okay, there now ought to be a deep understanding of, me as a person, but others, but also then just the broader environment that is changing. So because of these technological advances, then on the discernment, the capacity of mind to form a sound judgment by understanding reality as it is, free of limitations of ego, just understand, the environment in which you operate in. So then AI becomes important in this. And then lastly, when you look at the response also, then, okay, then now you've perceived the environment, you've discerned it. So you then have to analyze and understand the internal and the external context. Then you then make a risk, you respond by making a risk calibrated decision. So then we in this space, I expected to do that. But for us to be in a position to do that, we've got to understand these technologies, how they work, not necessarily to say everyone has to be an expert in AI. So then we just have to understand it, how it works, and what impact could this have, and then formulate a response. Then, what is important? So then what now, given, what's likely going to happen, etc. So then how can we then leverage, the human and artificial intelligence? So how can we, make these two work together? So then I've already explained the, the awareness and, from a human perspective, the discernment and then the response. So if we think of AI also, then it has a capacity for generating content in ways and speeds that humans can't match. So then this is where we kind of utilize AI, in order to augment our decisions. So then this is basically the augmentation of human intelligence using artificial intelligence. So then it, when we see it, we think, okay, this would be crucial in enabling leaders to see things in the perspective and then provide context. But that now happens swiftly. So you don't have to sit with piles and piles of stuff trying to analyze. You can just put the data structured and unstructured, so in a supervised or unsupervised machine learning, to get the perspective and then the context, and that happens swiftly. And the decisions, are also made in a swift way. Then again, so then AI has this potential for crunching massive data sets that then permits leaders to leverage the insights, the experience, the critical thinking, as they kind of discern. And then in terms of the response, then leaders leverage the machines, then at the same time, they are able to be in a position to have the reliable and efficient analysis. Of course, again, the most important thing, so as we spoke earlier of the benefits of AI also, then that happens in a swift way, which is important. But just I think the most important point that I want to drive here is leveraging both human and machine intelligence in order to make these decisions quicker than you make them using these big data sets, which should be helpful. Then on this slide, Prof, then I think this is the last slide that I want to put up there to say, okay, then so we've spoken about this augmentation. Then what else should we kind of focus on? What else should leaders focus on? What are other key considerations that leaders in African schools should kind of think of also? Then of course, technology changes, and it changes quicker and rapidly, etc., etc. So then probably then if you're sitting in a university, so then want to think of the agile TTOs, the technology offices or so, then AI would assist. In this case, the AI tools would assist in capturing knowledge, and then again, so then capture that knowledge swiftly, and then the registration of patents. Again, so then if you have the AI, it can be able to check if there are patents of similar nature that are registered, then you are able to get that quicker, and you register your patent. Then I think the point on commercialization of knowledge, we spoke earlier about one of the challenges that we're sitting with, the challenges of funding. So then there is always a need, or the attempts to raise the debt stream income. Then the commercialization of knowledge becomes critical for the debt stream income, so that becomes possible. So if we utilize these AIs, and then what else on the alignment of a curriculum also, then think, okay, so as we understand businesses, so then we understand the data better that comes from these businesses, we can then partner with them, to determine the future needs. So our continuous research that we conduct on the ecosystem that the businesses work on, and working together with these businesses would assist in understanding the needs of the future. Then we can go back and do the training that's required to deal with one of the problems that we had raised up there, to say 65% of people that are doing, may have different jobs than what they have today. So there is a lot of, work that's going on the restructuring of qualifications to allow for adaptation. So we think so then if we utilize the research and the intelligence tools, ability to mine and harness research, then one would be able to adapt the qualifications for the needs of the future. Then, of course, then take the micro-credentials. There's some debates going on. So I know the CHE has a paper on the micro degrees and micro credentials also. Then you need to take advantage of AI tools, to develop the specific skills that we need for these micro credentials. And then the last one, Professor, as I close, is problem-based learning, and then multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary, and the teaching of the non-technical courses. There's a need to consider technical multidiscipline and non-technical courses, and then as well as the problem-based learning into the curriculum. And then, of course, then AI would allow us to continuously promote learning through the continuous development. So we've seen a whole lot of universities, particularly in Europe, emerging because of these technologies, and then offering a lot of things that they're offering online, Prof. So then with these few words, so thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for listening.
No, thank you so much, Professor Malloy. I think, you really hit the nail on the head on two main areas, and you'll see it in the chat also. A lot of people are very interested in these two aspects of your particular presentation. And the one relates to this concept of readiness. When we think of the industrial revolutions and how far Africa has been behind in its participation, and I think the conversation of Professor Marwala also, that really deepened our thinking around an African fingerprint, an African identity that needs to be part of the conversation. And this is not a one size, fits all space, but also the fact that we cannot sit back and wait for others to do it, that we have to be active in our participation. And I think your conception of readiness is something that people would like a little bit more on, particularly when we think of how do we, in the various ways that we work with leadership, existing leaders, but also future generation leaders, how do we help them to become ready or future fit? And how do we allow them to embrace the benefits that these kind of technologies can bring in? So the readiness part is the one that seems to be coming up quite a bit in the chat. And the second part that's also coming up is around the contextualization of Africa in terms of the jobs of the future that you pointed out to. So I mean, I think that if we think of the changes that are happening worldwide, McDonald's having 30 outlets with no human beings whatsoever, or if we think of the automated cars that are now becoming the Uber of the future, we're not necessarily quite there, but the disruption in our industries is already being taken effect, like the VW plant that is starting to think of closing down because perhaps technology is able to take on many of the human factors. So the readiness piece, as well as what does this mean for Africa within the job context, and how do we prepare for it?
Yeah, so the readiness, you're right, Prof. The readiness is quite an important context. So you basically have these two types of leaders, the ones that are currently leading right now, and then the ones that are kind of upcoming. So the ones that are upcoming would be more amenable to the use of technology, and the ones that are there, so then probably may not necessarily understand technology. But from where I sit, Prof, for me also, then in order to make sure that we are ready and then our people are ready and future leaders are ready, so we just have to consistently try to imagine the future. I don't know if that makes sense. Try to imagine the future. So for us to be able to imagine the future, we need to understand these technologies, what they can do. Once we can imagine the future, then we'll be able to work back and say, all right, in order for us to supply the market and remain competitive, these are skills that we kind of need. And then this is what we need to be training our people on. Then if we do that, then we'll kind of be ready. Sometimes I go to class, I go to the accounting class now as the example, Prof. So then, okay, but they're still teaching the balance sheet the way I learned the balance sheet. But I mean, you have tools now that generate this balance sheet and generate this income statement. So then when we release that person to the market, also, what are they going to do when the machines produces this balance sheet? So we've got to, for instance, in accounting, we've got to think about this accounting in the future also then, and think about the tools that we have, and then say, how do we infuse intelligence in these machines? And then what will accountants do when we infuse the intelligence, and what should we teach them so that they can be ready? So then that's, I think for me, that's the important,
I think your point here on how we prepare people for the future and how we engage them in imagining the future and thinking about the future is one very important aspect, rather than keeping to the tried and tested ways of many years ago that now no longer. So keeping a close link to industry, so that developments in industry can come into our classrooms. But recently, you'll see on my Facebook feed, there is a whole school now that will be launched next year that will be totally AI, everything about the learning in that space will be totally AI driven. There'll not be any human beings, according to what I read in that article. So if I expose my students, for example, who are working in our South African schools, I mean, if we think of online learning, for example, before COVID, it was kind of very far from the imagination that our schools might participate in that. But then post-COVID, our schools started to think, no, man, online blended learning, we need some other plan B, should we not be able to have our kids in a physical space? And that became, a very hot potato topic. And the convenience of WhatsApp took on another role than just communication. It also became a teaching and learning space when other facilities were not available. Facebook pages took on some other way. So I think that you're right. The readiness part can't just simply be on the current leadership and trying to engage them into lifelong learning and what are possibilities, but that we actually bring into our classroom many of these disruptors, and that we ourselves keep abreast of what's happening in the world so that our teaching methodologies are not outdated, and even our teaching modes are not outdated. Because in order to learn best, you have to experience it. In many ways. So a quick example is, if you look at the meta function on WhatsApp that we all have on our phones right now, many people see the little circle, the multicolored circle there, but not very many people have engaged with WhatsApp. So for example, in my work in our Shwane schools, I got school principals to use a current problem, something that they're thinking about today, and engage with AI. And so that experience of it gave them the idea that, hey, I have something with me, like Professor Nisanen said, something 24/7 that can I ask a question to. Not that the answer is going to be perfect, but certainly I have a companion that I can draw on that can enable me to make better decisions or give me some other ideas about what I should do with particular problems and so forth. So I think we're in a space of experimentation on a number of fronts. But your point on readiness is just so spot on. We can't, like ostriches, put our head into the soil and think that none of this is going to impact us.
Correct. If you do that, you lose competitiveness, Prof. You lose competitiveness, and China will decimate you, and then other countries will also decimate you. We cannot lose any further competitiveness at this point. So we've lost so much. In order for us to remain competitive, We just have to look at these things and, you know, as you say, compete, be out there, learn. When we release people, so then we release them ready. I worked with colleagues at Anglo and then at Nedbank before I came to UJ. Surprisingly, all of them are working from home today. One is sitting in Cape Town, but the corporate office is in Sandton. Then saying, oh, okay, I used to go to Sandton every day, driving in that traffic to Pretoria. They're now sitting at home. So, and using these technologies to collaborate, work together, report, etc., etc. So it's important that we release people that are kind of ready, and we imagine the careers. We have to imagine the careers of the future and respond to that.
So somebody also put in the chat this concept of global collaboration and how AI can be instrumental in enabling global collaboration. Any thoughts on that, particularly in the realm of leadership?
Prof, so I'm not seeing that comment. So if you can just read it for me.
It's earlier on. So the comment, I think it was Dr. Mkizu who made that comment, and she says, AI can assist school leaders develop the act of fostering global collaboration. It was a comment that she made, this
Yeah.
idea of global collaboration, whereas Africa used to be very isolated before.
Yes. Yes.
And you know, colonization and all of that also impacted some of the kind of you know, leadership and the leadership thinking that was happening. And so now she's saying that the African voice doesn't have to stay in Africa; it can also reach other places through these global collaborations. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I think he's spot on, Prof. So then 3 days back, I did the global dialogue with academics across the globe. Just showing them what South African accountants thinking about AI. That's not what they've done on the other side. Then they're surprised. Oh, okay, data comes from the African continent. This is surprising. So it allows us to have the voice. But I think, for instance, I am of the view, Prof, that with AI and then its advances, etc., you're going to see globalization on steroids. So we're going to see globalization on steroids because the borders will be flat. We've already started seeing people working in the US, sitting in South Africa or sitting somewhere else, but working for a South African company. So even the guys that are doing taxation also, then they're just going to have headaches. How do you tax someone that's not a non-resident, etc., etc.? So he's spot on. The voice of Africa will be kind of heard. So then globalization. So with no borders, you know, because with the technology, there are no borders. With no borders, then the movement of ideas now. So then not of people, the movement of ideas would be prevalent. That's what I think. But for us to get there, because there is danger, we must remain competitive. There is danger that we could again be overwhelmed. So then if we don't go out there, we don't understand the benefits of these technologies, we don't participate in building these technologies. So we could find ourselves on the back foot once again.
No, I appreciate your balanced view, both in terms of the benefits, but also some of the dangers that it brings to us. So thank you so much for a fascinating conversation. We really learned a lot. We want to now get into some breakout rooms, just so that there's some engagement with people in the audience. There will be 3 breakout rooms that will be facilitated, and I urge the speakers to just stay if they are able to, just so that the breakout rooms become richer. And I look forward to some of the learnings from the breakout rooms. Jacqueline or Awande, if you could just put us into breakout rooms, please. Random selection.
Sadly, we ran out of time, Prof. We were still discussing deep leadership issues
I
within our
know we
structures.
also had a really engaging discussion room around large language models and what is the voice of Africa in these spaces. But I'm going to leave that to Dr. Mkhize, who has collated some really good, learnings from each of the rooms. And I know time is never ever on our side, but whatever we could harness in the time that we had, we'll get Dr. Mkhize to actually give us some insights into what all of the 3 rooms, and then the facilitators can also chip in if there's anything burning that he didn't come across. So here's the results of the Mentimeter that we asked: in what ways can AI support leadership development? The most popular came out as collaboration. Also prominent was productivity and efficiency. So Vesa, you can see some of the things here that might be useful. And then other responses that came up was it is effective in data collection, in effective communication, in making the leader more effective, in fostering collaboration, improving their skills, improving decision-making, increasing people's confidence, because sometimes AI can also become a mentor in some ways. It can be used as a tool, it will free up time, and I think that that's an important one. The idea that you can become time efficient, because leaders are always busy people with too much to do and never enough hours in the day. Mentorship, new idea generation, that's a lovely one, because I think we sometimes get so stuck in our context and in our thinking that we need grappling with other ideas. Proficiency, research, teacher-student relations, it unites people and can have a uniting kind of way, but it can also have a divisive way, as our room also discussed. So thank you so much, guys, for contributing to the Mentimeter. And I will now hand over to Dr. Mkhize, who very thoroughly collected data and information of learnings from each of the breakout rooms. And Dr. Mkhize will now share with us some of the discussions or the highlights of the discussions. And once he's done, facilitators, if you think there's anything else that you would like to add, you can just raise your hand and then we'll give you a chance to speak as well. Over to you.
Thank you, Prof. Kat, and for organizing this leadership conference together with our partners, Kagiso Trust. Yes, the impact of artificial intelligence in African school leadership development. That is topical indeed, and we thank the participants, all the people who took their time and attended to this conference, which sought to explore the evolving demands of training future fit leaders for African context, and how artificial intelligence-driven technologies enhance the effectiveness of such training. And the need for the leadership development that focuses on self-awareness, personalized learning, and individual development plans is where artificial intelligence tools have the capacity to revolutionize the preparation of future fit leaders. So this is taken from the theme for this conference. So we are learning from the distinguished scholars that presented today, who shared their thoughts and perspectives about the impact of artificial intelligence in African school leadership development. As Prof said, 2 things I'll be doing. I'll also be closing this conference and in a way also presenting a vote of thanks, starting with Prof Batchelor, our Deputy Dean, Faculty of Education at UJ. Thank you, Prof Batchelor, for welcoming us into this conference and doing the introduction. I hear that you jumped within a short period of time to stand for Prof Dean, but you were able to do it well. You brought in the perspectives of the Faculty of Education on what artificial intelligence means, and also how we need to relook at developing leadership to embrace and develop the artificial intelligence for the future. You highlighted that, of course, artificial intelligence is complex for the teaching profession and also for our faculty. And more has to be done to embrace this artificial intelligence. You assured and challenge us to take a strategic view to plan for the artificial intelligence, and to be cognizant of the consequences it brings as well. But again, you assured us that it is possible. We can learn from each other, and we need to increase the development and of our leaders to embrace the artificial intelligence, to improve what we do as educational leaders. Yes, as the Department of Educational Leadership and Management, we have a long way to go in that regard. Thank you very much, Prof. We also had a pre-recorded keynote address by our own Professor Marwala. Two critical perspectives that Prof. Marwala highlighted is around the localization of artificial intelligence and also the complexities that artificial intelligence brings to leadership. One thing that Prof. Marwala highlighted and that we should take home is that we need the sustainability development approach. Prof. Marwala also challenged us to translate the potential of artificial intelligence to find solutions for African challenges. I think that one went across all the other keynote speakers. They highlighted that somehow, if we are left behind this time around, Africa will be left behind. So means have to be done, and we need to be as inclusive as possible when it comes to the issues of artificial intelligence. And then we need to be creative. We need to redefine leadership to tackle African challenges. And in his presentation, Prof. Marwala highlighted that there are a lot of African challenges and all the issues that have been tackled before, but still something is missing when it comes to integrating African intelligence into African leadership. One issue being the financial resources. If we're not focusing on financial resources, and that was also highlighted by another speaker, that funding, we need to diversify funding and make it possible to develop the artificial intelligence that would speak to the African challenges and tackle African problems and challenges. And in his words, he said that we need to recalibrate our leadership approach to meet the demands of the changing worlds. And another point that he raised is around the ethics. The issue of ethics in Africa, it's a topic on its own. But if we are to remain in par with the other countries in the other world, we need to be ethical. So, and be proactive. that was an interesting point that was coming out from that presentation, that we need to reconceptualize artificial intelligence to speak to the African context. And in our breakaway room, in one of the groups, we were speaking about using the artificial intelligence to generate artificial solutions. Of course, Professor Moloi will go to the algorithms for that. How can we use artificial intelligence to bring about the solutions for Africa? Well, in our little discussion there, we noted the biasness that the data that the artificial intelligence uses is pro-European or Western, or not necessarily African, and hence we have a long way to go. Our second keynote speaker was Professor Vesa, who brought in the Finland military perspective of embracing artificial intelligence. And then before we even go anywhere with this discussion, Prof. Ket asked the question, how is what they're doing in Finland speaking to what we do here in Africa? And that's the purpose of this leadership conference, to bring in multi perspectives into the issue, and hence learn from each other, and as he's doing there, collecting experiences as to how individuals are learning of what artificial intelligence can do and or cannot do. He spoke about the leadership development and deep learning. Well, these are the critical issues. And he raised that what is crucial for leadership is how the leaders behave, how we behave, and what we do in practice, and how do we use this artificial intelligence. Of course, the issue of behavior was highlighted and discussed, and also noting that it has an impact on our leadership practices and also defined leadership, noting that leadership is also defined differently by different scholars. So the focus was on human coaching, with a specific focus on changing the behavior, and highlighted that everyone has a potential. Everyone has the potential. And then artificial intelligence can help us set milestones, and of course, we need to contextualize realities, and that learning still needs to take place. Prof, thank you very much for the presentation. We learned a lot. We also had Prof. Moloi. Thanks, Prof. Moloi, for the presentation on leveraging human and artificial intelligence to gear for future in African schools. Well, your presentation was more technical, but you spoke about different types of artificial intelligence, and you also mentioned the generic benefits of artificial intelligence, and those benefits, we need to leverage on those benefits, and of course, linking to what Prof. Marwala was saying, make it speak to the African challenges. One of the benefits that you mentioned was that on decision making. that with artificial intelligence, leaders can make and take decisions with speed and efficiency. No leader would want to miss that. But then the question is, how then do we develop our leaders to embrace the artificial intelligence so that they can do this with ease? You mentioned some of the challenges faced by the African schools, the issue of funding, which was also raised by Professor Marwala. And if we miss this issue of funding, will not be competitive and will be crushed by other countries. That's what we say. Indeed, you also spoke of the point of readiness, that we need to be competitive. We need to be competitive. Artificial intelligence is not for the certain few. It is for everyone, and it is readily accessible. If we have to be conscious about it, we need to learn. We need to learn, and then we need to learn and participate in building these technologies. That's what we say, and to rethink how this can be done to benefit the African context. So that is the main message we are getting from these presentations. And then the key considerations for leaders in African schools, that what extent are we aligning our curriculum so that it speaks to the future needs? So this calls for the continuous development of school leaders. To what extent are we restructuring or adapting the qualifications for the future? That's a question that is left for us to think about the solutions to this, so that when we embrace and use the artificial intelligence, we can be in a better position, more especially when it comes to developing leaders who will then lead the processes, the school leaders. In our breakaway rooms, we also had opportunities to share our feelings. I was not able to go into all the rooms, but as I highlighted earlier, that in one room that I was in, we had some robust discussion about the use of artificial intelligence, and some highlighted what they are doing in their little space to use this artificial intelligence for the benefit of the organization. All in all, we cannot work in silos. We just cannot work in silos. We need to collaborate with other partners. We need to collaborate with other different organizations, and race towards ensuring that Africa is not left behind when it comes to embracing artificial intelligence. And as we are collaborating with the Kagiso Trust in this leadership conference, we thank Kagiso Trust for the continuous support and for this continuous collaboration. Without you guys, I don't think we will manage. And Prof. Kat, you have organized this conference for quite some time. We are bringing us to think and to critically think about our practices. Your topics, I don't know how you choose them. They are always topical. And you've shared this leadership conference well. We thank you for that and the participation. we hope that it is not the end. And as we are continuing tomorrow with some other discussions, and then again, there will be future leadership conferences that we will also ask our participants and colleagues here to also join. And with that said, if there are anything that I'm missing, Prof. Ketch and colleagues, you can come in, and I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mkhize, for that wonderful summary and wrap up of our amazing deliberation today. I also learned a lot, and I think your summarizing comment at the end is that it begins with us, and Africa cannot be left behind. And so the task then is for us to continue the discussions tomorrow and beyond. And the idea then is that we all in our own spaces, wherever we find ourselves, take what we have learned and start to think about what would be our role in pushing the agenda, of the use of technologies, particularly AI technologies, in leadership development for Africa. So we look forward to everybody joining in again tomorrow. A huge thank you again to everybody who worked tirelessly, but also to the speakers who gave us a lot of food for thought. Colleagues, our presentations, all of the presentations and the PowerPoints and everything else by way of what happened today will be on all our platforms, and there will be a letter sent out to you after the leadership conference that gives you access to everything that you may want to revisit or you may want to further share. And we look forward to further conversation tomorrow where we can speak to our role within the context of African leadership development and how technologies will be disrupting that, but more importantly, what will enable us to work towards a brighter and better future and an Africa for all, a more inclusive Africa for all. Take care, everybody. See you all tomorrow, promptly at 1 o'clock. We look forward to further discussion with another amazing session with different angles and different ideas about the same topic, but certainly bringing to you a lot of food for thought. Take care, have a good, restful evening, be safe, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.